Hey everyone, Dan here. Happy Memorial Day. I hope everyone is enjoying the day off. And I wanted to take a quick look at IPOE, which is set to switch over to SOFI, ticker symbol SOFI, tomorrow. And so it's just sort of like give an update on the potential short squeeze that's been happening, where the chart sits before the switchover, and then just sort of like some of the realities of what's going to happen with the shares available and dilution and things like that. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's jump right in. So first, let's get kind of the practical things out of the way. So the ticker symbol is going to change, and I think for most people, you probably won't notice much of anything. You should just see, there might be something weird happening like with your brokerage right now where it's showing, maybe you have SOFI shares or options now, but they have no value. So that'll just sort itself out when the market opens, or even potentially in the pre-market, depending on your broker. I know some brokers do charge, or at least used to charge, a fee for holding through a simple change. I don't know if that's potentially your situation, but it could be worth taking a quick look to try to find out. Otherwise, you'll probably find out tomorrow. But otherwise, you shouldn't notice much of anything other than the simple change. I did go through one of these once before, and I was restricted at first from making any changes to my position, but it lasted, I want to say it was maybe a couple of hours into the market open, where I couldn't do anything with the position. But that may vary by broker as well. I'm not sure, but just know that that's sort of like what you can expect tomorrow. So just keep your eyes peeled for anything weird, but otherwise it should feel relatively smooth. The other thing that happens is, there's a ton of shares that are going to be coming into play. And so, I've been getting a bunch of questions around this, both from like, how could that affect the short squeeze, but also, won't the dilution just drive the price down? So a little bit of, there's just some really interesting things like happening all at the same time with IPOE. So I would consider, the short squeeze that we've been talking about, and sort of the pressure that's been put on the short sellers to close out positions, which I think accounts for a healthy percentage of this run up. And then certainly the hype around the ticker symbol change has, just sort of like finalizing the merger has certainly driven a lot of the price action. But yeah, when the dilution comes in, technically that should sort of drive the price down. My question is, how will that sort of interplay with the hype and interplay with any potential short squeeze that is still happening or that evolves throughout the day on Tuesday or Wednesday? So that may sort of like put a bunch of pressure against dilution driving the stock price down. The other consideration that I haven't heard anyone really talk about is SOFI is getting absorbed by the NASDAQ. They're going to be listed on the NASDAQ. And so any funds that are trading NASDAQ or tracking the NASDAQ, they should be buying shares of SOFI in order to include them as part of that fund. And so the amount of shares that get bought up in order to sort of allow that occurrence to happen, those funds to own the NASDAQ as it currently exists, that buying pressure could be significant. That was a big thing when Tesla got absorbed by the S&P. That drove the stock price really, really high. That factor just in and of itself. It's hard to know exactly what percentage of that was driven by that versus all of the hype and other factors, but that certainly played a role. So I'm interested to see how the short squeeze and the NASDAQ inclusion interplay with the dilution and the sort of sell-off that often follows the merger. But yeah, we will know pretty soon. On the chart, I wanted to point out a couple of things, and then we'll take a look at sort of like where the short squeeze situation sits currently. So there's a couple, it's sitting right now in this really interesting area because you have all of this previous support and resistance here. See everything that's included in this box? And then up here, toward the top side, you have basically all of this previous support and resistance as well that we'll capture in here. So it's caught right in that box right now. on the 4-hour, and so it's really interesting to see, what it's going to do in this box. I think the bullish scenario looks something like, it putting in a big flagging pattern here, and when it flags out, we'll be looking for it to jump to the upside. So that would be kind of my bullish hope. But it's going to need to hold, the bottom trend line there in order to push itself up and out and, work its way higher. On the upside there, if it does break out, I would be looking for some stickiness, right around the mid-22s. And then again, right about here, mid-23s, as we make a bunch of stops on the way up, if it can get this much momentum going, or if the squeeze is causing this, those are areas that I would look for it to flip resistance to support in order to continue the bullish momentum. If it sort of gets stuck under any of those, it might be a good opportunity to think about trimming to at least lock in some profit, or closing out and waiting to see what happens. On the shorter term side of things, let's get rid of this. I would look at, this big pullback here. I'm interested to see if this can sort of form a cup. Could potentially see a cup and handle coming. We could potentially see that this was basically this sort of retracements this way. Okay, it sort of had this big run up and pulled back into this area, consolidated itself out of the down channel, and now we're going to see the up channel reemerge, something like that. So that's the potential to the bullish side of things. And, I would look at the longer term chart for some higher price targets personally, just because this price action is so choppy. I actually think that this 4-hour chart gives you a much better indication of where these potential supply and demand zones sit. And even though it'll be a new ticker, I still think you'll see a lot, because there's certainly volume of shares traded that will become SOFI stock that exist in all of these areas. So it doesn't make it completely irrelevant. To the short squeeze side of things, let's take a look at where the stats currently sit. As we closed on Friday, this is where things were. So still reading at just over 30% of the float being shorted. That's from the reporting date in mid-May. If we look here, the dollar value has pulled back a little bit, 352 million in dollar volume, and a pretty lengthy days to cover, 5.5 days to cover. We'll talk about why that's additionally interesting in a second. We do see a little bit of a rundown in the change versus the previous month. I would say to that end, there was all this huge increasing in position sizing, and then that dwindled a little bit, and then we had our first negative dip, but still this small minus doesn't go very far to offset all of these huge positives. Positives meaning pluses, not positive things. We do see interesting pullback here on the short volume ratio, pulling down into the low 20s, where it had been pretty sustained in the mid 20s, even into the 30s. But we did see on the Friday before that also a huge decrease, and then they just picked it back up. So with all of the hype and everything around this, I don't know if that's causing some of them to maybe stay away and sort of see what's going to happen as the week unfolds, or if that's just going to sort of be a Friday thing that happens, and a slightly smaller ratio, and then it just is going to pick back up. So we'll know more after close on Tuesday for sure. The borrow rates, the good news for anyone who's looking for a squeeze to take place. This borrow rate's continuing to stay at this 261.6 range, so no relief from the rate that's being charged to borrow the shares to then sell short. So that should keep a ton of pressure on. And, short float percentage still showing relatively high on Finviz. And then this one on Yahoo also showing even higher from May 14th. So there's always a little bit of discrepancy in the numbers. To be honest, I don't 100% know why. Maybe someone does and they can leave it in the comments, but I just sort of try to get a consensus of numbers and use those. So that's what I'm going to be looking for as we get into the week, as the ticker symbol changes. The first big battleground is, like I said, sort of what happens at this, topping out area. There's like this topping out, but then there is this topping out as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see an attempted push and then a pullback into something like this range right here, right around 20. And then a big push up, if we're even moving bullish. Who knows? There's so many factors in play that we will start to sort of come to light soon enough that's it's almost not worth the speculation. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's starting to be a lot of talk around this one. So I'm mostly interested to see if that NASDAQ inclusion really helps offset some of these potential dilution factors and things like that. All right, well, good luck if you're in this one today. I'll certainly be talking about it on the channel, I would assume. And I, just want to put this out because the ticker symbol change tomorrow. I had been dedicating Wednesdays to IPOE and doing additional short squeeze updates as things changed on other days of the week. So I'll plan to continue to do that. So I'll cover this again after close on Wednesday. And but this seemed like sort of special timing, so I wanted to jump in and offer my 2 cents, or at least what I'm going to be looking at as tomorrow unfolds. Well, good luck. It'll be interesting. I think we'll learn a lot, and I will see you all in the next video.